Welcome back to the More About Jesus podcast. My name is still Alan Martins. You can call me Al. And I'm once again joined by my cousin Daniel Dunbar from Edmonton, Alberta. I'm in Saskatchewan. We're a whole province apart. We're just two regular working guys who love nerdy stuff, and we love Jesus even more. I wanted to clarify this week that we're not theological experts or paid pastors. We're not in this for the money in the slightest. We're striving to avoid using Christianese words too, like things that you hear churchy people say. But for us, if you've listened to the first two, you know that we kind of grew up in church. So sometimes they're going to slip, but just forgive us for that. But we're here about to get real about the teachings of Jesus. So that's what this is all about here. So how was your last couple weeks, Daniel?
It's been
good, bad, stressful.
Bit of both. It's been a little bit stressful here and there, but nothing major that's going on, and some stuff that, well, one thing was kind of major that was stressful, but I can't really discuss it here right now. So
why not? I'm just kidding.
You know exactly what it is. We have talked about it, but it's not public yet anyway. So I can't disclose any information on that. And quite frankly, I only know a very little about it anyway. So it's not even like I know the whole story, but I only know some of it. But yeah, as far as work has gone, it's been hectic. People are, of course, getting ready for winter. So
that you do that in the garage, you're doing winterizations already?
Yeah. People are starting to come in for, because like here, like the leaves have already fallen. They're all on the ground. We're all starting to rake them up and stuff like that. So people are starting to get winter tires, get up and ready, and winter oil changes and stuff. So,
well, this time last year we already had snow.
That's right, we did. Did we?
Yeah, it was crazy. I saw it in my Facebook reminder things or whatever, the history. And yesterday, a year ago, it was -5 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, like what?
Well, it is October in up here in Canada,
in the prairies. Yeah, it's pretty wild here.
In the northern prairies at that. So.
Yeah, that's true. You're a little more north than me too yet. So
I think we're pretty close to the same. Pretty close.
The road, like the Yellowhead, kind of goes north and east, right?
Yeah.
No, west. Sorry,
west.
You're west of me. Yeah.
Maybe
crazy.
just a little bit
my
more
week
north.
stunk. I'm working twice as hard for the same amount of money right now. I have a bad attitude about it, I'll admit it. But it was Friday. Thursday. Today's Friday. Mm-hmm. So the last work day of the week, it was a Thursday. Somewhere around lunchtime, I started to feel better. And I don't know why. I can't give anyone any credit for it. Because I kind of had a bad attitude most of the week. Partly because I'm tired. My joints are sore. So I have bit of arthritis in my knees and my ankles and my shoulders, and I'm doing more physical work again.
Yeah.
So partly because I'm lazy, partly because it's all kinds of things. But my attitude got a little better. So, and I don't know why yet, but I made it through, and we're having a good weekend right now with family that came from Ontario. So on my wife's side.
Oh, nice. Who came over to visit?
Good. Yeah, it's a family from the Toronto area, that Gloria's older sister. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's fun. And tomorrow we're going to Saskatoon to visit and stuff there too.
Oh, cool.
Anyways, I wanted to jump on you about music. We haven't talked about music yet.
Sure.
As a banter thing, just what are you nerding out to right now with music? Because I know we have some common things.
Yeah.
That we like, but. Start with that. What's your jam right now?
Oh, right now is David Crowder's newest album, Milk and Honey.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You said that.
I've actually pulled 2 or 3 songs off of that already for worship, just to lead in worship, because I'm like, this thing is just packed full, and I just love it. So,
he has always at least, I think, 4 or 5 on every album, singable songs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Some of the modern stuff they try sing it in church, but I don't think they're singable. Like we probably shouldn't do them. They're not meant to be congregational singing.
Yeah.
Like Crowder has some really good ones.
Yeah. Like the congregational or corporate style worship, right, is what I look for. And so far I'll be able to pull a few out of there. And I'm like, these are actually really good for where our church is at and what the church sort of needs to hear right now. Right. And
that's cool.
In the dark
Yeah,
times.
he's usually really relevant too, I think.
Oh yeah.
Which I guess I've always felt like songwriters like him that are being led by the Holy Spirit, it's not being relevant, it's being in touch with the heart of God.
Yeah.
When you're creating things that reach out to the people and what they need to hear.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, Crowder's cool.
Yeah. What about you? What any albums you're digging on right now?
I have. I've been having a screwy year, but it's one of my go-tos. Well, I'll start with a bit. I'm try not to take too much time, but my go-to for a lot of years for musical therapy was James Taylor. James Taylor Greatest Hits specifically, and there's some other albums of his that are good, but his voice and the type of music, even if I was angry or frustrated or sad or mourning or whatever, it had a spiritual element to it that always would calm me. And I still love James Taylor, but my new jam for that is Casey Musgraves. And I don't know if I should confess that as a Jesus follower. A lot of people probably don't think Casey Musgraves is but she has this quality in her voice and the types of songs she does, and so she has a new album out. It came just the right time. I'm loving it. And also a friend of mine, Kate Katawaki from Love Thy Nerd, she and I are kind of musical twins in a way, which is weird. She's way younger, but she could be my daughter.
Yeah.
And she lives in California. But she finds music that I like and introduces me to it. So last week, a guy named Foy Vance, Foy Vance.
Yeah.
Has a new album out. Unbelievable.
Nice.
It just cut through my soul. So that's kind of my jam.
Oh, nice.
But I'm very diverse right now. I used to be straight up metalhead. And for a while, it was straight up just worship music.
Yeah.
Now I'm kind of all over the board.
Yeah.
Just some of the newest country I can't take, but everything else
Well, country, rock, blues is the same. It all sounds the same to me right now.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like the rock.
One more thing
R&B.
before we get to our big topic.
Yep.
What was the coolest concert you've ever been to? And I think I might know yours, but I don't know.
Oh, coolest concert I've ever been to.
Like an experience like you'll never forget, like a big epic thing.
I would have to say that that was U2. When they did the 360
they came to
tour.
Edmonton, right?
Yeah, they came to Edmonton, and they canceled the first one for some reason. It was
I
because
remember seeing that.
Bono fell and hurt his back at another venue, like during the tour. So he had to heal up and come back, right? And so. When they did come back, actually, it was shortly after Brandy had one of her pacemakers put in. Yeah, because when her heart was in really bad shape, it was when one of her pacemakers was in. So, and then she was like, "Is the sound going to be bad for my pacemaker?" She was all worried about it, and so yeah. So we had to buy the more expensive seats because at a U2 concert, the ones that are like down in front are the cheap seats, like the standing room only.
Yeah.
Those are the cheap seats because that's U2, right? So we had to be in a seat so that Brandy could sit during the whole show, and so we had to pay a little bit more money. But yeah, that was a really cool one. That was a really cool experience.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah. Oh, or even
and Rush.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the Rush concert was just killer because my son and I went to that, and that was when Josiah was really into drumming, and he was taking drumming at McEwen University for drumming, and
he took drumming for drumming.
He took drumming for drumming.
Bizarre.
He took a course for drumming. Yeah. So, and that was a surreal experience in itself as well. So, yeah. Yeah.
That's cool.
How would you last
I have
concert?
a few.
Yeah.
The real big one I like was still Judas Priest in Saskatoon, because the old
Nice.
metalhead in me had fun. It wasn't a concert experience in the sense, because the place was only half full, which was kind of sad, because this guy's invented heavy metal.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the show was absolutely mind blowing.
Nice.
That and Third Day's Soul on Fire tour.
Okay.
We came to Saskatoon to a big church there. It was like a worship experience thing. And I've always been a big Third Day fan. And that was one of the greatest experiences of my life. Easy.
Awesome.
Easy. Yeah. But those are my concert. That's cool. I think we should go to a concert together in Edmonton one time. Next time when they open that up again.
Yeah, whenever that is, right?
If Billie Eilish comes. I love her too. Anyways, cool. So, this week, as we were discussing what we should go through, there's a lot of topics, but we wanted to start with something. I guess what kind of made it solidified this idea for me is that the Sermon on the Mount, and we're going to go from starting in Matthew chapter 5, verse 1, is sort of like not just random teaching by Jesus. Like, not that anything was random, but this is like the calling card that this is okay. This is a summation of the things I want to do with the kingdom. Because we see a lot of other stuff when Jesus teaches is like a parable, or it's as he's going about things, you'll see things and speak into something, or he reads someone's mind and speaks into that. This is like an overview, a teaching of the kingdom with no secrets or nothing. This is what it's about. This is what it's going to be about from here on in, if you're one of my followers.
Yeah,
it's a good place to start, I think.
Yeah, it seems like with the Sermon on the Mount and stuff like that, this is where Jesus just lays out the kingdom, and in a different way, but still keeping with a lot of the old traditions as well, right? I mean, like he said, he wasn't there to abolish the old law, but to actually fulfill it, right? And like a lot of people have to remember that Jesus wasn't New Testament. Jesus was still an Old Testament Jew. The only writings that they had were the Old Testament, right? And
I don't know why, but people don't think that. Like, that's very logical, but their Bible was the Jewish Bible.
It was the Torah. It was the law.
They didn't have the Book of Corinthians.
No, and no, they didn't have any of that. They didn't have any of Paul's teachings, because all of that came way after. And even the apostles' stories, they came like 10, 20 years after Jesus' resurrection. So like those, they were in the process of being written, but never were fully written, right? Throughout, as far as I remember anyway. I haven't really done any heavy studying into this. So as I said, we're not theologians or anything.
Like we said, we're not, this is us working through stuff. We might have done a bit of research, but we're not, this is ordinary Christian podcasting here. This is not, and I think that ordinary Christians are the ones that are going to change the world anyway. And we have a bit of a celebrity mentality, an addiction in the church sometimes, with someone who's not that education's bad, or that people using their fame to proclaim Jesus is bad, but it's the everyday Christians who are committed to transforming their own lives that are going to have the biggest impact on the world, especially now, because people ain't coming to our churches.
Yeah.
And it's not just because they're boring or anything like that. That's because we can't. So they let's adapt here, people.
Yeah, like
let's figure a way to do this.
Most churches right now have seen like a massive decline in how many people are coming. Like, I just read an article. It's like, you can't go back to 2019. It's not going to happen. Don't expect it to happen. Most churches have seen a decline in people in church by about 20 to 30% from what it was in 2019. So, if you had a church of 100 people, you might have 20 people show up, or 30 people show up, means you're having to almost start from scratch, which can be a little bit disappointing and discouraging. But
Oh, for sure.
You
a lot
have
of
to
people are really
you have to adapt.
like just they're scared of what's going to happen. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, that's to your point. I mean, your everyday Christian is the person in the bay next to you working on a vehicle. Your everyday Christian is the guy down the line in at harvest time that's having to sweep the floor or something like that, right? And
Yeah, exactly.
we still have to, your everyday Christian is going to be the cashier as you're checking out your groceries or somebody like that, right? And you just you never know, and so have a Jesus conversation with somebody, right? And that's what we're trying to do anyway.
Yeah.
So
cool. So let's dive in. I'll just start reading.
Absolutely.
I'll read the first verse and then I'll read the first beatitude, I guess, and we'll just go from there.
Yeah.
So Matthew 5. I'm reading from the New Living Translation, but I have the Google machine right here, so we can look for different things if we want to do that. Yeah. One day, as he saw the crowds gathering, Jesus went up on the mountainside and sat down. His disciples gathered around him, and he began to teach them. Can we just stop there? So something we kind of hinted at last time, about the chosen. So from what we just read or whatever, why do you think they chose to make it seem like a big planning thing that Jesus prepared them for? And how does that work out to you? I have my own weird ideas about it, but is that something that struck you as weird when you watched The Chosen at first?
Because when Jesus, so for anybody who hasn't seen The Chosen, we're getting up to that's in season 2, right near the end.
Yeah, near the end of season 2.
If you haven't watched it yet, well, these are going to be some spoilers. You've had 6 months to do it, so I think we can.
You've had 2,000 years to read the story,
and you've had 2,000 years to know what's going to be happening. But yeah, so within The Chosen, Jesus takes off. He's like, I've got to figure out this sermon. He's like, this is important, and so he steps away. And he starts trying to figure it out. And all of his disciples are like, what the heck's going on? What do you mean he has to plan or anything like that, right? And, the character of Jesus in The Chosen was just like, I want to make sure that this is right. And so he'd grab Matthew and run things by him. So that sets the scene for what we're talking about right there. And was I surprised by it? Maybe a little bit, but it made it more human. It made it more real. It made it more relatable, right?
Yeah.
That Jesus was he was thoughtful about how he was going to approach this, right? It wasn't just off the cuff, and that he wasn't so divine and so much God in that moment. He was still fully human, that he still was a little bit worried about what he was going to say and how he was going to say it, to make sure that the point came across as clear as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, wow, that's something actually I didn't go there in my brain, but that makes sense. That's the more and more I'm learning about the humanity of Jesus and how important that is, that he would have been nervous for sure, because you know how important it was. Yeah, and considering that, I think right away I thought, well, how did he even, it's not planned because it's spontaneous, but he knew and he prepared his disciples. In the message, he's like, okay, this is very important. This sermon is this is the one. This is very important that this goes over good. And I thought, well, he knows because he can read people's minds and he knows these things. He's, we see that time and again in the Gospels. He knew the woman at the well in Samaria would be there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He knew that was a God meeting. He knows things are going to happen. And so he prepares, for it. So that wasn't too weird for me. It actually kind of added to the value of what he's seeing in this. I thought, okay, this is people got to get this. This is
Yeah.
important. And one thing that he can't control is what these people are, how they're going to respond. He has no idea.
Yeah.
He doesn't even know, like, oops, sorry. Like he has an idea. Let's talk about Judas. Like he knew Judas would betray him, but
Oh yeah.
but there's always also an element of he doesn't really know what's going to happen. Like with people, God doesn't know what people are going to choose to do or not to. He knows ahead of time what's going to happen, but he can't. I don't know. I think Jesus didn't I think he didn't know. Is that weird to think? I don't know.
They didn't know
could tell me.
how people would respond to it, or
Yeah, he doesn't know all the outcome of what's going to happen to this German. I guess he knew in advance he was going to die and all those things, but
yeah.
I don't think Jesus knew all the things about everything.
Yeah.
Because he gave up that divine knowledge to temporarily to set it aside or whatever to become a man.
Yeah. If I was to guess, I would say that he was thinking that this is the first major sermon about the kingdom that I'm giving. Right? To a large crowd, a crowd of like, it says 5,000 men plus women and children. So this is a major crowd, first time that he's doing this out of the wilderness, out on a mountainside, and not in a town, in a house, or in in the synagogue or anything like that. So this is him laying out the kingdom, right? And reclaiming it from what it was supposed to be and what it was twisted into through the religious leaders at the time, right? With all the extra rules and everything else that they had. And he was just like, no, okay, let's just start from here. Let's, go into this. Let's just settle down. This is what it's about. Right.
Yeah, get used to different.
Get used to different. Right.
Oh, I love that.
And there is a T-shirt of that. There is. I've seen Dallas.
Yeah,
I've seen Dallas getting it's a shirt that said "Get used to different," and I was like, that was awesome.
Yeah, I want that.
Yeah, but
so that's the setup anyway.
Yeah, there's one major thing that I found interesting in just in the first verse, right? So Jesus went up to the mountainside, and this is where he's going to give his speech, right? And this mirrors, like somebody else, I heard this on a different podcast, this mirrors Moses going up the mountain to get the laws. Right? And then he starts breaking out, this is the kingdom and this is how it's going to be. So it does mirror a lot of the Old Testament, and even as we go through like the rest of the parables and stuff like that, they do mirror a lot of some of the stuff that happened in the Old Testament. That the people just needed to be retaught.
Yeah, I never thought of that.
Yeah, no, it was
well,
something.
They knew that what they were doing wasn't working to change the world, or they were just doing stuff, like obviously through other gospel stuff is like people are so amazed at how powerful his teaching was and how he had authority and all this stuff in this. So they were so hungry for something better than the same old stuff they've heard for their whole life.
Yeah, and something that was, like you said, different. It wasn't being taught in the synagogue where there was even more rules, right? Men had to sit over here, women had to sit over here, lepers had to sit over here. You had different areas that for different people. Right? There's a different temple for Gentiles as there was for the Jews and for...
Well, there was a complete segregation, and then this guy comes along that's not at all segregated. Everyone's welcome.
Yeah, everybody's welcome. It's like, get used to different, right? I love that line in there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then he goes on to talk about the Beatitudes.
Mm-hmm. So you want to hit the first one?
Yeah, I'm going to read it in... Okay, I got the Message up here too because I've been reading that too.
Oh, I was going to read that one too. I was like, I love it.
Okay, I'll let you do that one. So this in the New Living, it says, God blesses those who are poor and realizes their need for him. For the kingdom of heaven is theirs. Now, the typical is, so if you're reading what you're used to hearing, like the New King James or something,
Or the NIV or something.
Blessed are the poor or poor in spirit.
Yeah.
For the kingdom of heaven belongs to them.
Yeah, for theirs is the kingdom in heaven. And yet in the message it says, you are blessed when you're at the end of your rope. With less of you, there is more of God and his rule.
I really think he nailed it. I really think he nailed it there, yeah.
I did try a few other versions, and I'm like, this one surmises it, I think, the best, and brings out, for me, it brings a lot of, it reminds me of a lot of stories that we had in our life, like in my personal life and stuff like that, of that exact passage right there, right? Like, I mean, so like I said in the introductory last week is my wife is a heart transplant patient. So you have to be pretty darn sick in order to receive a heart, to the point that just a brief overview on this was she at the near the time of that the transplant was going to happen. This is 8 years ago, because she's 8 years transplanted now. Right near the end, like November, December, she could not walk half a block without having to turn around and go home and lay down.
Wow.
Like her extent of her energy was like, if she gets, like I told her, if you get supper made, that's good enough. That's all I care about at this point, right? And that's where we were. So it's like when you are at the end of your rope, there's less of you and more of the kingdom. And we had, so during that time, we had a dry run on the transplant. So what a dry run is they phoned us up. And they're like, we have a heart. We have a donor heart for you. So we get everything ready. We had all of our contact list and everything else ready. We went in to the hospital and they prepped her. They completely prepped her, got her ready for surgery. And then the transplant doctor came in and was like, the heart that was there was in too bad a shape. It wasn't as good as what the people receiving the or receiving, that's not the right word, taking the heart had said it was. It was in really, really bad shape, and she would have suffered, like my wife would have suffered with that heart. So that was devastating for us, because here we were prepped and ready to go.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're so hopeful and yet scared. And
yeah, you're hopeful, you're scared. I mean,
are.
And then all of a sudden it's just like the rug gets pulled out right from underneath you. And at that point we had been waiting 6 months since we'd been put on the transplant list, right? So we had been on the list for 6 months at that time. And with Brandy, she's also rare blood type. So it was, but it was rare in a good way that she could actually receive any heart. I think that's how it was. I'll have to talk with her about that again. So they're like, it's a good that you can, like you're pretty high up on the priority list, but still 6 months. And that just,
a long time.
Yeah. And that devastated us. Like that really devastated us.
Wow.
And then that week I still had to lead worship, and that was the hardest time that I had to get up and try to sing praises to God, because
you don't feel it in the slightest.
No, I mean we were devastated. We were wrecked, and then I got up there and like one of the songs that I sang was "Praise You in This Storm." And I
love that song.
That was a hard song to sing when you're going through the storm. But I mean, powerful. And like everybody was like, that was the best worship service you've ever led. And I'm like, well, it wasn't me, because I quite frankly didn't want to be there. It's like that was all God, and then for like the next 4 weeks, I was like just emotionally shut down. right? And it's just like, but God continued to, we were at the end of our rope, and with less of us, God was able to come through, and it was awesome, right? And in looking back at it, it was awesome. Going through it sucked. So that's my story for that scripture, and how it
That's really good.
how it
Yeah,
how it affected
I got
us.
one almost exactly the same. Gloria's my wife is bipolar, so after the birth of our first son, a few months in, she had what they call a hypomanic episode and was not being herself. And I don't need to go into details, but it was scary. And I had to give the doctors permission to sedate her against her will, which I still hate that I did that. And she was hospitalized for a short time at the time. But then after my second son, she had a depressive episode, which is way worse. And it was a few months of hospitalization at that point. So there's people who say they're depressed, and then there's people who end up in a hospital for months because they're depressed. That's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
And I was definitely at the end of my rope, and it was all God. But I was something I want to emphasize is that I was angry at God, super angry. I told him to F off, to be honest, that he could have me back when he gives me and my wife back. But in the midst of that, I still remember driving back from Saskatoon at one point, leaving her still in the hospital, and listening to Stephen Curtis Chapman for some crazy reason. Why am I listening to that when I'm mad at God? But whatever. So there's certain and that it was one of his songs, and I can't remember which one that brought me back. That brought me I was right at the brink, and God was still there with me and didn't reject me, and I never felt like God was far away. Never felt he was there with me, even though the road was hard and it was long. And I definitely, I guess I was it wasn't rebellion. It was just like it was a realization in my life that things go really crappy for Christians sometimes.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you're young, you grow up with this idea that it's all going to be peachy because I'm faithful and going to church, and I believe in God, and I believe in the Bible, and I pray and I memorize the scripture. So those kind of things happen to people that aren't faithful, that miss church, that don't believe all the things I believe. And I wasn't taught that, but I grew up thinking those things for some weird reason. And then when it all falls apart, it's like, no, wait, actually, a lot of bad crap can happen to people that you can go to the end of their rope. And then I'm like, especially if you're a Calvinist of sorts that thinks that everything that happens is for a reason and God wrote out a script for your life that, so when some people hear plans, they think that God, every second of your life is a script that he wrote out that he knew would happen. So he's okay, here's the part where he's going to almost lose his wife, Yeah. God doesn't, that's not, he didn't organize it for Brandy to have a bad heart. He knew it would happen, and he's there with you through it. But I mean, I guess that's a huge debate that we don't have to get into because a lot of people get worked up about it. But that was where my brain was struggling with things.
Yeah.
And
it's funny that
I realized my need for him, like that, and I like that, and there was a whole lot less of me, and God was there. He was there for me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because it's funny that you mentioned that because even last night, Brandy and I were talking, and there are some scriptures in there that's because you have generational sin and stuff like that, and who
Yeah, this person's sick. How come? Who sinned? The father,
sinned?
the mother, or what?
Yeah, right. And then even Brandy was like, it was some of those Old Testament scriptures. She's like, so who did the wrong that not only am I sick, but that this same gene or slight or deficiency in the heart could also, is passed on to our daughter, for example, right? Where she's got very slight dilated cardiomyopathy. That was what my wife was diagnosed with her old heart, was dilated cardiomyopathy. All it means is she had a big heart, and my wife does. I mean, to this day, she has a ginormous heart for people and for God. So, yeah, and it's like, but whose sin did that? And I was like, really? You're not, So we were sort of discussing that. I was like, but you look at like in this story of the blind person who'd been blind for his whole entire life, right? And Peter, of course, it's got to be Peter, right? It's got to be Peter out of all the apostles who's going to be like rubbing on Jesus and stuff like that. It's like, man, Jesus must have been like, geez, Peter, just like get a clue already, right? And even in the Chosen, he's a bit of a wild cannon, right? But hey, this is the guy that Jesus is going to build his church on, right? Somebody as messed up as Peter. He's like, yes, no, that's exactly who I want for my church, right? Is messed up people. I want messed up people who are going to wrestle with things and not just accept it at face value. Because Peter asked him, he's like, okay, God, okay, Jesus, okay, Messiah, whose sin caused this guy to go blind? Was it his or was it his parents, right? And Jesus just looks at him and is like, idiot. He's just born blind.
Like, we still ask those kind of weird questions.
That was the culture back then, but people still do it to this day. Is like even within the church culture, it's so bad because people do it. They'll be like, "Oh, you're sick because you did something wrong," right?
Yeah, that's so sad, eh?
And it's just like, and people get judgmental about that sort of thing. It's like, and now especially, it's like, "Oh, you got COVID because you were a bad person because you didn't tip that waiter $5.
Or God didn't protect you from it because you're sinning or whatever."
It's like, now if you were a total Karen and after having a church meeting, you went to a restaurant and chewed out your server. Okay, maybe you deserve to get sick, but hey. That's my gripe with some Christian people, that they totally forget, that, you go to a church meeting and then 5 minutes after the meeting, nothing's changed.
That's sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I worked in the restaurant industry, so I know how that works. Quite a bit. How good people are at tipping.
Yeah.
And that they give tracts. There's tracts. Did you know there's $20 bill tracts?
Oh, I see those and I hate those.
That are fake.
I know, I hate them.
They have a corner of a $20 bill and then the rest is like, you don't need money, you need Jesus or whatever.
Yeah. I hate that stupid little thing like that. That is just like, you know what?
That's the worst.
These people just put up with you for a meal and they have to get home to their family. And they served you. Yeah, they're making minimum wage. Like, tip them well. I mean, and that's something we've always done. I mean, even with our pizza delivery guy, before Skip the Dishes and Uber Eats came around, we tipped our Panago guy pretty good. And to the point that when we ordered our pizzas, they were here within 10 minutes to our house.
Wow.
Because they knew.
That's cool.
And they were hot. They were piping hot. And then we stopped ordering off of Panago for like 4 months or something like that, because we were just making it at home, and then we're like,
they missed you.
Yeah, and then we ordered off of Panago again, and when the guy delivered, is like, did we do something wrong? Because it's the same delivery guy's like, did we do something wrong that we haven't seen you guys forever? Because it used to be a staple in our house that we would just order pizza, because especially when Brandy wasn't feeling well, and it's just like I was too tired to cook, so. Yeah.
That seems legit.
Yeah.
I'm the cook, though, so I don't get that. All right. Now, this is totally in on this. I think we should stay on this verse. I'm not going past it till we're done. People at the end of the rope. Now, we've just been honest and shared these times, but I don't feel like Christians are good at this, at being at admitting that they're at the end of the rope. And now this is key. This is what Jesus is getting at, because I think it's, I don't want to say an epidemic, but it's bad.
Yeah.
I think church culture has created this way of thinking that Christians have to have it all together and not be at the end of the rope. And they could be at the end of the rope, like they're dying inside, but they come to church and pretend, just that face. Yeah, you'd have to, if you're listening to this podcast, you need to get on YouTube and watch to see some of this stuff, to see our pretty faces. Because, so what do you think of that? Is that something you've seen?
Heck yes. Every time the poop eating smiles, as Christians have been called, as like, you go to church, how are you? Everything's great. Everything's awesome. Yay, Jesus is Lord. And it's just like inside they're dying. Right. And this is something that and more so I'd say in church leadership, that we're not allowed, you feel like you're not allowed to show weakness. Like you feel like you're not allowed to show that you're broken, that you're hurting as a leader. Right. And I mean, because
everyone's counting on you.
Exactly. Right. And
what if that one non-Christian comes in the service that day and you're not 100% on, they could go to hell because you screwed it up.
And that's unfortunately how we feel. Now, nobody's ever taught us that.
No, exactly.
How did we come to this?
It's what I keep coming back to, church culture. It's a thing that we do.
And how did we come to that?
Our kids grow up thinking certain things because we don't talk about stuff.
We don't, right? And it's so aggravating, because it's like, you know what? Why can't we be angry? Right? Why can't we show that we're not doing good? We're there with other people who would probably help us, who would at least pray for us to help us to try to feel better, and maybe petition to God even that, hey, you know what? This is my brother, and this is my brother or sister in Christ. They need some help. Wherever two or more are gathered, you said you're going to be here with us. So, hey, we're both here, right? I mean, you're in the church setting. This is the time. This is where you're supposed to go. It's, James, in James chapter 5. Yeah, I think it was in James. Yeah, James chapter 5. He's like, if one of you is sick, call on the elders. Go to church. Get them to anoint your head on oil. Get them to pray for you, right? Or weary, or anything like that, right? Support each other, lift each other up. That's what church is supposed to be for, right?
Yeah, but it's not. Let's be honest. I guess there are,
but I'm hoping it changes.
I'm sure there's people who have a different experience. So if you are one of those people, please share that with us on one of our medias, because I haven't seen it, and I dream of it. And when I still attended church, that was one of my goals. I wanted to create a time after the service for people to come up and pray and share their burdens, and I even wanted to start a prayer movement in that regard. But it never got traction. It happened here and there, and it's just people are still so uncomfortable with sharing their stuff.
Yeah.
But that's what I think Jesus is getting at. This is really the core of this, I think, is that blessed are you who realize you need God. You need something beyond yourself. You don't have it all together, and it's not enough to be just you.
Yeah.
Like, we're meant to be in a community that supports each other, that is comfortable with sharing our garbage with each other.
Oh, absolutely.
When we fall apart, and not isolating each other and pushing each other away. But we're better at judging and isolating ourselves from each other than we are at anything else.
Yeah.
Sadly.
I mean, it's I think a lot of times it also has to do with the fact that maybe we don't trust the other people in church.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because the people in church gossip.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's why we don't feel safe to talk about our problems there, because then church people gossip. Maybe if the church people didn't gossip, maybe then we'd see more of this actually going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like, no, we're not going to talk about it to anybody else. We need, you need help. We need help. Everybody needs help. We all suck. Nobody's perfect.
It's got to, I think, start at a leadership level, though. I think you need a pastor and elders in it if you're going to still do traditional church that strongly believe in this, and have an umbrella of it and a way of it, and just create a place for this, because from the bottom up, it doesn't work. I've tried that. Well, and I'm not the only experience, but one guy or a handful of people that's tried to change. If the leadership of a church or people don't want to go with this, they want to still make a program and have a show. So every Sunday there's a thing, and your idea of sharing your problems doesn't fit in with what we're doing right now. It's just going to never fly. To be honest,
I don't know. I think a handful of people that aren't in church leadership might be a way to go with it as well. I mean, mind you, I come from a vineyard church, so it's a little bit different model than the traditional style church, right? But consistency and doing it over and over again, even though there's nobody there, or you feel like you're not getting anywhere, but it's like, you know what? You have a big ship that you're trying to steer with a really tiny rudder, and it's just going to take time. It'll get there eventually, though. Right. It'll take some time. It'll take some people, trust takes a while to build, and people would have to trust. Right. And that's just it. And you would have, so I'd say that it'd be easier with like a leadership and board and stuff like that, helping and supporting it and participating in it, but it still be fine. I think it's still needed within the church.
It probably will just have to start, like you're saying, but it's just, it can be so frustrating. I mean, I'll admit that I gave up on it, but not completely, but at least for now, until I could find some other way of doing this. But it can get very frustrating, and I think people have given up a lot of times. Because it's not about just not being received. It's about being in a place where people are just mostly comfortable with pretending like everything's okay. And I'm all good. Yeah, no, I'm good. I don't need prayer. I'll just put this little note in the jar and that's good. And it's, being vulnerable is hard, but that's what I think Jesus expects of us, to be honest. And it's not easy. And I'm an open book kind of guy. So yeah, I know I have to be more patient because it's not as easy. But there were times it was super rewarding when someone from out of town would be through church and come up for prayer and share something, or someone's. But usually it was people literally at the end of the rope, like their marriage was ending or something. Like and they're desperate, and so they come up and then you pray with them, and you could see how much it would help them. But I'm like, I want people to come up and say what I'm saying. Like, listen, man, my job sucks so bad right now. I just want to quit. And I just can't take it. I know I got to stay there, and I'm just so stinking tired of it. Or parents who are like, you know what? I got 3 kids, 1, 2, and 3, and I'm going nuts right now. I can't take this. I know I'm supposed to love my kids, but I just want to send them away for at least like a week so I can have a break. Yeah. Things like that. We don't talk about that because you're not supposed to say those things. And I think it's essential. Yeah. Because there could be more of God in your life. The more you keep trying to control it all and keep it all together, there's less space for God. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's the thing that in the world, people do that. In my non-Christian friend groups, people do that. Why don't we do it in the church? We're better than that.
We're supposed to be better than that. We're supposed to be sharing the good news. We're supposed to be saying that, hey, yeah, I know everything sucks, and we know everything sucks, but Jesus is I don't want to use all the Christianese because that sucks. But it's like, when it comes right down to it, it's like, how are you getting off of this planet? It's like, yeah, it sucks, but I can show you somebody that'll help you get through it, because he's been through sucky stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll try to get it through it with you, because I've been through sucky stuff. And this is how I got through it. Right? And Jesus is the one who led me through it. So why can't the Christians do it?
So I think that's good for this time.
Yeah.
That's just basically 2 verses, but
Jeez,
3. But
at this rate, we'll have 500 episodes by the time we're done with the Sermon on the Mount.
This went actually better than I was. Like, I didn't know how we're going to go through this, but that was really good. And you had a lot of good insight there that would keep me thinking for a while.
Awesome.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Anyone who's listening right now, let's think of that. Like, let's realize your need for God. Let's go there in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and like the message.
It's okay to be at the end of your rope,
Like the message says. I'm just going to read it again because it's such an awesome version in the message. You are blessed when you're at the end of your rope. With less of you, there is more of God and His rule.
Mm-hmm. And then I'm thinking of, quickly, I'll say to Paul talking about his thorn in the flesh, how when I'm weak, then God's strong. So the weaker you are, the more room there is for God's power. It's not just about me holding it all together,
Yeah.
So I think we nailed it there.
I think God uses that. Our God uses us in our weakness.
Yeah. Well, I'm living proof of that.
Aren't we all?
My old man weakness. Yeah. So I'm Al. That's Daniel. If you have any questions or comments or of anything we talked about, if you have some insight that we missed or something you just agree with, or maybe you just want to be nice to us and send us an encouraging note, you can reach us in a lot of places. On Twitter, we're at moreaboutjesus3. Also, we have an email, moreaboutjesus21@gmail.com. The best place is on our Discord server. So there's a More About Jesus podcast on the Discord, and you can find links to all this stuff on our YouTube page. So if you're just listening to this podcast, we do put out a video of this so you can see our pretty faces. I'm joking. We're not ugly. We're hands. Our mamas love us.
I've got the perfect face for radio.
So, but we do have YouTube, and there's links there to all of our stuff. You can follow me, Al, on Twitter at Alanon68, or Daniel at DannyBoyDunbar. We're not super active on Twitter, but we also, on our own More About Jesus Twitter, I do post quite a bit of stuff here and there. Reach out. We invite you to be a part of this vital conversation, because we think that the world needs more of Jesus. And sadly, the church needs to be more about Jesus than it can be sometimes. I don't know your experience, but share that stuff. So reach out. We want to hear from you.
Absolutely.
Till next time, then, let's all do what we can to be more like Jesus.
Amen. Like, share, subscribe.